Hey, hello gang. Just a second, let me finish getting you adjusted here. Oh. All right, close enough. Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Dan, maybe you know that, and I am here to talk about painting, and in specific about painting what I call the final edit layer. And as you see by the title there, I've called it the all-important final edit layer. But first of all, a little formality, just for fun. This is Daily Art Adventure number 543. Can you believe we've gotten all the way up to 543? Final edit by me. There, now we're official. Hey, before I start talking about this painting, I want to show you a document that I just finished hammering out just a few minutes ago. Yesterday, when I was doing this painting, I took several minutes. Here it is. I could fish it out of the trash. If you were watching me yesterday, you saw me do this on camera with you guys. And after chewing on it for a while, I thought, doggone, that's a good outline. So here is the finished typeset version of that same document. Now, I just 20 minutes ago posted this on YouTube Community. So you go to, YouTube, Dan the Art Man, and slide over at the top over to Community, where you can see all my still images, and you can get this there absolutely free. This will be, for now, this is the latest, greatest description of my painting process. Basically 15 layers plus in between many of those 12 more. Turns out now a total of 27 different steps, but that's kind of an exaggeration. It is 27, but not, it's really 15. And after after most of those layers, we do an intentional intermittent messiness. Intermittent means in between other things, okay? Anyway, so if you want to see how I paint, take a look at that. Couple real important caveats. It's Dan Nelson's latest, and approximate painting process. So no, I don't follow this every single time, but I think generally speaking, this is the way that I paint these days. So those of you who follow me or want to paint like me, you might want to take a look at that. All right, so here we are down to the final edit. And I'm going to read. Here's the description here. The only opaque layer of the 14 layers I've done so far, this is the only one that's opaque, or the first one that's opaque. The only real precise layer. This is, of all my other layers have been wild and crazy, slapdash, making all kinds of chaotic marks, which end up, of course, in an accurate rendering of the subject. Don't get me wrong. But it takes the most time, but listen to this, covers only about 10% of the finished canvas. Whoa! So that means on a canvas this size, only an area about the size of my two hands spread out like that. That's about how much of this canvas should have opaque paint on it when it's done. I emphasize that for any of you people who are copying or being influenced by me. The painting is 90% finished. What you see on the canvas, on 90% of it, is the way it's going to stay when I'm done. But that 10% is the most important 10% of the canvas. Okay? And this last layer, and actually there's one more layer after this one, even though it's called the final edit. In my evolution, this is what I mean. I'm always growing as an artist. That's why it's called Dan Nelson's latest painting process. I even put a date on it, February of 2019. So in one of the recent evolutions is that, like in the last 6 months, is that after the final edit, I do broken color, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is that all-important final edit layer. Mostly opaque, all light, and of course I don't have to tell you that because light and opaque are virtually synonymous. If you're an artist, if you're a painter like me, I don't have to say light opaque, because if I say opaque, you know it's light, and if I say light, you know it's opaque. The big question with this, and by the way, just to let you know, let me zoom in here just a little bit. I want to let you know, just for what it's worth, I am quite happy with this painting. That means it's mine to lose. At this point, if I just manage, and here's the biggest way I could lose, okay? The biggest way I could screw up on this painting is real simple. And believe me, I have done it many times. The biggest way I could screw up on this painting, and it would be very easy to do, would be that I put too much paint during this last layer. That's it. That I cover up too much of the canvas. So I'm going to be really careful not to do that. Okay, now, where to start? That's a huge, huge question. It's kind of fun. It's not hard. Nobody's going to die. Nobody's in danger here. But it is a good question. And there used to be 4 options. After I added the fuzz layer, that took care of the local color option. So now there's 3 options for where to start this final layer. Number 1, start like a traditional oil painter, which is the furthest away object, which in a landscape is always the sky. So that's an option. Start with the sky. Option number 2, start at the focal point. And I'm not exact. I think the focal points, I don't know. I mean, there's so many. It's right in here, a little bit down there. There's not one clear focal point, and I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. Probably right in here, which ironically is right dead center of the painting. Again, and I'm okay with that too, because I still think the composition is working. So that's option number 2. Option number 1, start with the sky. Option number 2, start at the focal point. Option number 3, start at the lightest, the brightest, whitest thing. What in this painting is going to be the lightest mark? Start there. And by the way, here's my photograph. I think you saw it just a few minutes ago. Can you see it? There we go. I see your comment, David. What's the red on this? Okay, David asked a question. Let me go back. This is the internationally famous new techie company called Red Hat. So, of course, they put a red hat, a red top on their building. This right here is the Marriott Hotel logo. So that's what those red things are. Okay, I'm going back to my reference here, the reference photo, which is getting bad glare. But I'm looking, what are the lightest, whitest things here? Well, this road is really white, this bridge, and I like that. I'm not sure my painting should follow that. This building is the largest white building is the front of the Marriott, catching the sun. This is also quite white. Those 3 things are the whitest, but just because that's what the photograph says, of course, that does not mean that those have to be. So, and it's definitely not going to be down here. I want this to be light, but not that light, not like the photograph. That leaves this, no, not a good option. Yes. So in a way, so I want some of my lightest stuff to be right in here. And if I change the word to chroma intense, then these orange yellow brick buildings in here are also some of the lightest stuff. Okay, so those are the 3 options: the lightest thing, the farthest thing, or the focal thing. And now let me scratch my chin and try to decide which will it be? Forgive me for appearing to waste your time, but I've got to think here. I really do want to nail down the sky. The danger of starting up there is that if it's too far from the focal point, you're tempted to put too much energy or detail or hard edges, all the synonymous terms there, in energy, detail, sharp edges, too far away from the focal point. So that's the danger of starting with the sky. I'm going to start, yeah, right in here, focal point. But instead of starting with the lightest thing, I'm going to start with the orange, these buildings. Let me point you at my focal point, I mean at my, at my photograph one more time. Can you see those two buildings in particular, and that one third? And then I'll basically work out from there like in the rings of a target. I'll start at the bullseye and move outward from there. Okay, that decision is made. We'll start painting shortly. One interesting thing about this particular view of our city, and I've done it many times before, not from this exact viewpoint because I did not take this picture. The photographer has given me permission to paint from it, but the photographer was up on a lift, a cherry picker. That's the same kind of thing that people use, men use to work telephone lines and things like that. You know, you see them high up on a pole in a truck. Anyway, that's what the photographer used. So I have never seen the city from this exact angle, but I've done very, very, very close to it. One of the funny things about it, I was trying to say, is that there's virtually no linear perspective. Everything's flat because we're up on a hill. And there's a little bit of perspective at the tops of these buildings, a tiny bit at the bottom, but ironically, we're looking at almost everything in this painting straight, flat on, which in a way makes it easy because I don't have to get too worried about linear perspective, but it makes it hard because because it's so easy, I'm liable to forget about linear perspective and make those little minor changes. All right, so I've mixed up a bright orange color, more like a salmon color. And again, I'm looking at my reference. And I think I went down to my garage and picked up a tool because I just had a feeling that I might be wanting to use a palette knife, but much larger than a palette knife. And already I'm in the mood to do that. So I think I want this edge of this building, again, because it's focal point. There we go. That's pretty nice. Let me try the other side of the building. Yeah, that's nice. I'm going to save that tool. I'll be using that again later. Probably. Maybe not, but probably throughout the afternoon. Now, I mentioned earlier that this is the slowest of all this is layer number 14, right? But all the other layers were quite fast, as I like to say, slap and dash. Really slap it down. But all of a sudden, everything changes at this layer. It is just like I've called it, the final edit layer. Now, I'm not going to put much paint on the canvas. That would be a disaster. But where I do put the paint is extremely important, and I'm going to move fairly slowly. That means I'm not going to broadcast this entire final edit layer, because my guess is I'll be doing this for probably 3.5 hours. Does that make sense? And that would be a little bit too much for YouTube, even for you stalwarts. I would get tired of talking. That has never stopped me before. What you just saw me do now was mix up a slightly lighter version of this orange. Now, I like that straight edge. But in spite of that, in spite of how much I like it, wait, I'll wait on that. I'll wait on that. I'm going to smear it with, I am going to run a brush through it to make it glow. But before I do that, let's do the dark side, the shadow side of that building. And again, just for what it's worth, this is a significant change, improvement I have made to the photograph. The photograph is frankly not all that great of a photograph. It's good enough to paint from. The reason is because when the photographer took this picture of, excuse me, I have to keep looking. When the photographer took this picture of the skyline, the sun was almost perfectly behind him or her, whichever it was. Which means all the shadows, oh, but there are no shadows on the buildings, not much. They're quite flat. So it's quite a flat photograph. So one of the first mental notes I made about this painting, in reference to the photo, was, okay, I want to change that. So I'm doing sunlight that would have happened about 2.5 hours maybe later in the day. So the sun would have gone around to our left, more toward the west, and I'm going to make the sun hitting the left side of all these buildings and having this side of each building in shade. The photograph has it ever so slightly that way, but so slight you can hardly even see it. So I'm making that adjustment, and you can see even right here. So this is the shady side of the building. This is the sunny side of the building. Now, class, let me ask you a question. We do not want to lose sight, even in this, the tightest layer of the painting process. The essence of good painting is what? And I don't mean the essence of a good painting. No, no, no. The essence of the act, the verb to paint. The essence of good painting is what? Making interesting marks. Exactly. So even while I am up to my eyeballs in tightness and accuracy and similitude, the interestingness, can I create a word? The interestingness of my marks is paramount, is more important than the accuracy. Now, understand though, I want my marks to be accurate or convey the impression of accuracy. Better be a better way to put that. Does that make sense? So some of what you see me doing right here, I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. So I was pretty structured up here, but when I came down to this corner of the building, I got messier and messier and messier. Yes, on purpose, of course, absolutely. Oops, and I just realized there is a little corner of this building in front that comes in front of that. So let me make that correction. There we go. Again, not that anybody would ever catch that, but again, I want to be fairly realistic to the photograph, to the subject matter. My quest is, and has been for many years, to be more accurate and more messy at the same time. So the latest development in my continual evolution of painting, and it is reflected, let me show you this again. Here's the latest, right? These orange fading down to yellow bars it says, I don't expect you to be able to read that, but it says intentional intermittent messiness. So after each layer, I have intentional intermittent messiness, except for after this layer, because any messiness I do in this layer will be done while I'm doing the layer. But anyway, that's getting too detailed. So I've discovered for myself that on this journey toward more realism and more freedom, or more looseness, or more mess, the best way for me to do that is to have intermittent, intentional messiness. So there's a lot of mess, as you can see already on. I mean, what is that purple line right there? Well, physically, what is it? I showed this to you yesterday. This is a brand new product I just found at Jerry's Artorama the other day. Funny selection of colors, but I don't understand why it is that, but that's all right. They were on sale, and they're made by Charvan, good friends of mine in Paris. Actually, not in Paris, and they're down in Marseille, but anyway, they put Paris on there. That's fine with me. Anyway, water-soluble pastel painting sticks. That intrigued me, and this is the first painting I've ever used them on, and I'm pretty excited about them. I really think they're going to be a good addition to my painting. Anyway, that's some of what you see here. These pencil-like marks that look like pastels. That's exactly what they are. This orange, this purple. Let me talk for just a minute then. Since I brought up this, so while I paint, let me talk for just a minute about this, again, this notion of messiness inside a realistic painting. Now, let me use Richard Schmid language. Now, if you wonder who Richard, S-C-H-M-I-D, he's an old guy. He must be pushing 90 by now, I would think. But anyway, truly an American master. I mean, for decades now, been recognized as one of the great, I would say, great American painters. And he uses the term edge control. Now, when I read that in his book a couple years ago, to my knowledge, that was the first time I'd ever heard that term. But it's a great, and since then, though, I've heard it many times. So maybe I've heard it before and just it never registered. It's very possible. In the general, broader subject of edge control. Now that's Richard Schmid's terminology. Let me give you my description of it. Here it is. It's easy. Piece of cake falling off a log. Easy mistake to make, to have too many hard edges in a painting. Catch that? Easy to have too many hard edges. Comma, semicolon. Almost impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. So what does that tell you? The magic is in the soft edges, not the hard ones. Now, why is this so hard? Because I already told you, this is the epicenter. This is the bullseye of the focal point of my painting. So hard, 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 hard. If I carried this out even this far, it would be a disaster. Let alone if I carried it all the way to the edges. Does that make sense? Real intense right there. Why? Because that's what I'm after. Right there. I'm going to make a few changes here. These white marks that I just put down there a minute ago. A little bit too much sameness. There we go. Perhaps you've heard me say that anytime there's a highly repetitive mark of shape in your painting, anytime there's a shape that, and I call that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 white windows this is also repeated over here. By the way, I'm not finished with that. Here, let's give it a quick finish. Whoa. Whoa, that was more than I expected. I love it. There and there. I'm going to leave that for right now. Do you see where, let me zoom in so you can see what I just did to that. Look at that. That was completely spastic. I just went like that, as you saw, as you heard, and made that mark way more than I expected. Huh. I'm going to, if I want to diminish it, I'll diminish it later in the process. Now that brings up, and by the way, I've got a topic in my mind that I left a subject dangling a few minutes ago, but I keep just distracting or interrupting myself. So even though officially, so to speak, in my painting process, I should be all done with all the darks. I finished that way back at layer number 11, dark details. Okay, but officially I'm done. But in actuality, yes, I can come in here and cheat, so to speak. Does that make sense? I can. It's cheating the system, but my system has allowances for cheating built right into it, so no problem at all. All right, here's a broader topic. I can leave that building for the moment, move on. Here's a broader topic that I really want to get into with you. And I see your wonderful chats. I can't wait to lean over there and take a minute to respond to you. But let me keep painting for just a few more minutes before I do that. All of this talk about messiness, why am I big into messiness? Because we want the mind of the viewer, whoever looks at my finished paintings, and I'm not unique in this at all. We're all children of Rembrandt and a whole bunch of other people. We want oh, I'm getting static. Hang on, let me fix that. There we go. Sorry about that, gang. Okay, that's why I wear something in my ear, so I can hear it when you guys are getting that. Sorry I didn't hear it earlier. All this talk about messiness, especially, I think this is the first time I've ever put together a document where I actually listed intentional, intermittent messiness after every single layer. After every single layer. That kind of thinking, that kind of painting is going, frankly, it's going to drive some of you guys crazy. And if so, those people have long since left my channel, saying, grumbling things. It's like, ugh, I can't stand the way that guy paints. Such things, right? And we all stand at the doorway and wistfully wave them off as they disappear over the horizon, right? So I'm going to take just a minute with a great deal of grace and generosity, I hope, but sort of analyze the type of personality. And I'm here, I am not picking on excellent artists who have chosen to make super realism their stock in trade, their method. I'll pick on beginner painters, students. I'll pick on those guys because their twig can still be bent. But I'm not picking on the good painters who have chosen to paint super realistic, but more the viewers, the people who look at artwork. And when they look at what I call my style of painting, David Lafell, I got this from famous artist David Lafell. When they look at my style of painting, they kind of scrunch up their nose. My feelings are not hurt here. I'm not trying to defend myself. I'm just trying to be honest and analytical. They scrunch up their nose and say, "Ew, that's nice, but..." And then they point to somebody who does super realism or hyper realism, whatever you want to call it. You know, much realism, very realistic stuff. It says, I like stuff that looks like this. And believe me, folks, the world is full of people who prefer, I don't mean all the people, but there are a large, significant, I should say, segment of the population who belie what I say. When I say we want the viewer's mind to finish the painting, there are a whole lot of people, honestly, adults, who go, ew, I don't want to, I don't like that kind of painting. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but probably not, right? Okay, let me, again, not to put them down by any means, but I have given this a lot of thought. And let me tell you a little bit about what is happening there. Many people, because of, frankly, trauma in their childhood or trauma in their adulthood, have determined, and I'm getting all psyche here, so bear with me, have determined in their inner mind, in their secret inner self-talk mind, that the best way to get through this planet, this world, is by controlling stuff. Batten down the hatches, seal up the portholes, keep things tightly barred down, and try to weather out the storm. And I can't blame anybody for feeling that way, because we all know life sometimes can be hail. Anybody doesn't know that must have had a very short life, right? So one response to that is to develop a personality style that is hunker down, control. And I'm going to give some other descriptors beside that one. And again, my goal here is not to pick on people, although some of you listening to me, you might be rescuable. I guess that's part of why I'm saying all this. Because in my opinion, there's a better way to live an adult life. And it is, instead of battening down the hatches, tightening down all the seams, controlling everything in your world, it is to realize that you can't control everything and pursue at least a life of inner freedom. I often use the term adult in a negative view. And I've had many of them in my classes over the decades. You know, that's how they turn up their nose and say, ew. and it's okay with me if they paint tight, that's fine. But again, in my opinion, there's a better way to live, and it's more in the direction of freedom. I know I'm sounding scarily close to a preacher at the moment. It's, if you will, it's a preacher of peace and joy, not a preacher of religious bondage. Okay, you see my buildings are getting messier and messier, right? You see that as I get further from my focal point. Here's my main point, really. It's not to pick on other people or people who, for whatever reason, a combination of their childhood and a combination of their natural proclivities and personality styles and so on, have decided to live life uptight. my real purpose for saying this is, especially for you artists, for you painters, for my fellow artists. One of the things, if you want to be a good painter, one of the things you need to pursue is, is to revive. I'm going to use crazy, spooky language, forgive me, but to revive your inner child. If I'm a good painter, then it is because, I'm convinced of this, it's because to a large extent I have somehow been able to either keep my inner child alive or, probably more precisely, revive. Now, and again, I know I'm sounding... See, a child looks at life through pure, uncomplicated, unadulterated vision. They are not analytical. See, the enemy of childlikeness, one of the enemies, is the wrong kind of analysis, the grumpy kind of analysis. Now, my approach to painting is quite extremely analytical, but it's within a context of understanding that I'm analyzing abstractions. I'm not analyzing my photograph. Here's the big difference. Do you see? I'm not analyzing my reference and copying it, at least not on this painting, not in this style of painting. Why am I making all these messy marks? Because the child inside me and many viewers goes, wee! Does that make sense? Why am I making a mess? Why did I put a purple line right through the middle of that building? Because the child inside us gets a little tiny, not a big deal, I'm not saying it's not life-shattering or earth-shattering or life-changing, but gets a little thrill, a thrill of purpleness, and a thrill of texture, a thrill of pure visual stimulation. And again, in my opinion, mine and Rembrandt's, of course, so I'm not being overly humble. In my opinion, the biggest joy that we can get out of a painting, I'll just limit it to painting right now, is our eye sees without any trouble, let me back out just a little bit, sees without any trouble a city skyline. Not only a city skyline, but sees, if you live in Raleigh, you see the Raleigh city skyline. No trouble. Boom. Instant recognition. That's easy. Okay? But at the same time, your eye is picking up all kinds of abstract line, shape, color, value, texture, interposed, superimposed, or underneath the painting of the recognizable painting of the city. And the real thrill, the real aesthetic buzz that we experience in painting, in looking at a painting, is not in recognizing the city. Are you with me? That's a given, that's necessary, and the more accurately I can render this city, the better that goal will be accomplished. And as you know, I've worked pretty hard yesterday, the day before, to get all of these buildings accurately copied. Yet at the same time, you can see all over this canvas is all kinds of extraneous stuff that is not just a picture of the building, a picture of the city. And more of our aesthetic joy comes from the second half of that, not from the first half. We do get a kick out of seeing something accurately rendered. We do, absolutely. We do get a kick out of it. But we get the biggest kick out of the thing instantly recognized, City of Raleigh skyline, combined with, in an almost inexplicable and hard to define manner, all kinds of messiness, if I can use that shallow term. All right, so there, that's, I'm gonna go up from there. I need to be really, really careful that I don't carry. In fact, I'm gonna mess this up a little bit right here. There, that's better. Now, let me point out something. When I make a mess, let me zoom in on that. So you just saw that I just did that scribble, a bunch of scribble right there. Hey, if there's something I don't like in the scribble I just made, then it's a piece of cake to come in back either with my finger or the brush and diminish the scribble. Do you understand? So that goes without saying. Just because I make a scribble doesn't mean I'm saying, there, I'm done. No, 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 no. I'm not done till I'm done. That makes sense? It ain't over till it's over. It's baseball. Painting's not done till it's done. Until then, it's not done. And it's quite a ways before this particular painting is done. I've a decent way to go yet. And as you can see, it's going to take me a while. All right, but I'm not going to paint the whole canvas with anywhere near that degree of detail. So let me back off here and make sure I'm not overdoing it. I'm going to go ahead and move up to this building up here. I think I'll just keep those brushes dirty because the building above the ones I've been painting, this building is decidedly blue. Very blue, and it's already blue, so as it should be. If I've done my underpainting well, then I shouldn't have too much to do in the overpainting stage. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you? If I've done my 13 layers up to this point, if I've done them rightly, so to use that word, I've done them the right way, then there's a whole lot that I don't need to do in this final stage. And I do feel quite confident that in this painting in particular, I've done the underpainting in a satisfactory manner. So I don't have to do a ton of detail or explaining. In fact, I could have called the painting finished if that was my style. It just happens it is not Dan Nelson's style, so I'm not finished. But it could stand on its own as a finished painting. That's a good way to be when you get down to the last stage of the painting process. All right, you guys are leaving so many chats. I'm going to take a quick break here in just a second. Plus, one of the downside, real quick, of me broadcasting when I'm painting it is I've discovered it's easy for me to keep my nose too close to the canvas for too long because I'm aware of the fact that people are watching, right? So I don't want to bore you, so I keep on plowing ahead, and that has more than once resulted in some not so good painting because I haven't taken as many breaks as I should. So let's rectify that. Put these brushes down just for a minute. Look at some of your great comments here. Appreciate you guys watching today. Probably half the people with comments are already gone. Hello, Make Art Not War. Appreciate that comment. David Mercer, don't worry. Some of this part of the, I'm sorry, let me expand out. This part of the red is going to be in sun. This is in shadow. This is in sun. So no, they're going to pop. I want those red stuff. They're powerful there. They're not going to be dull at all. Hey, Winston, thanks for the thumbs up. Hey, Michael McEwen, appreciate the comment. And yeah, thank you. Make love, make art, not war. That it looks finished. Exactly. My point I was just making a minute ago. The red is more pinkish gray on the sky. A little bit. Yeah, no, that's the way it is in life, I'm going to go with, no, I mean, there'll be soft edges and so forth, because that's pretty far from the focal point, but it will be pretty bright red. I think it'll work. Yeah, good, David. I think I fixed my sound. Thanks for the notice. Sorry, it took me so long to get that fixed. Yep, David, they look too bright right now, but that's because they pop out. Everything else is going to come up a little bit, and I think it'll be all right. I think it'll be all right. Winston, thank you for speaking the truth for all of us, man. Winston says, seeking approval and fear keeps me from loosening up. You have spoken for all of us, man. And the fact that you identify that means you're more than halfway over the battle. So kick that to the curb, loosen up. Good job. Good job. Hello, Michelle Lynn. Appreciate it. I'm going to keep painting then for a while. Thanks for that little break. Now, and David makes a good point. Right now, this is going, wah, wah, wah. It's way too bright. But it won't be, I believe, as the painting. Now, so the canvas is as dark, basically as dark as it's going to be. This last layer is light, opaque highlights. The final edit layer is light. So the whole canvas is going to march toward lightness. Let me clarify one thing here. When I say only 10% of the canvas should get paint on it, and again, that's about this area, this much, so I'm already close. That does not include translucent. So I'm talking here about opaque. So sometime, now I've already done translucent in the sky, so I don't need to do much up there. You know what? I am going to, this is just very intuitive, one of those things. I'm going to leave that blue building, come back to it later. For some reason, I feel the urge, and I hope it's a correct feeling urge, to come up and tackle the sky. Oh, let me mention one other thing. The very last layer before this one, here's the final edit. All right, there we go. There's the final edit, right? Right before that, number 13 is draw with pencils. Okay, now you regulars, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these Jerry's Artorama jet black, jumbo jet black pencils. You can see those pencil lines all over the canvas, right? Maybe going too fast for you, but I just want you to see there's pencil lines everywhere, okay? When I am doing that pencil layer, I am not worrying very much at all about overdoing it. It's like, whoa, wait, that's way too much pencil. Here's why I'm not worrying about it. Because I know that this layer is going to follow that one. And in this particular layer, the final edit layer, I know from experience that I am going to cover up much of that pencil. In fact, the final edit, that means exactly what it says. Any place, any time where I feel like, oh, there's too much pencil showing there, like I'm doing right now, then I know that I'm going to cover up some of that pencil, okay? So again, final edit means exactly what it says. Nothing is nailed down until I finish with the final edit. And even then, I've got one more official layer after that, which is broken color, but that's another subject. But in the final edit layer, here's how I describe it. The last line here, it says, edit out anything not visually effective. Now, how do I edit it out? The answer is because I'm using opaque paint. That's how I edit it. I cover it up. Now, what is surprising to me, and I hope, again, anybody that wants to either learn from my technique or perhaps emulate it a little bit, this is really important, and this goes back to that grumpy adult mind, that judging adult mind that most of us need to be healed of, frankly. That grumpy adult mind is looking for things that look realistic. That doesn't look real. forgive me for mocking, but I'm not mocking anybody. I'm mocking the grumpy adult that we all have inside our head. That doesn't look very real. That doesn't look very real. That doesn't look, okay? Again, I'm talking about in my mind, in my own head. Anyway, that grumpy adult mind, and by no means this is a reference to anything that anybody has said in my chats. All your chats are perfectly well taken. I'm talking literally about what we're all tempted to have inside our head. Anyway, so when I say in the final edit, you cover up anything that is not visually effective, that does not mean you cover up anything that is not realistic, right? I'm assuming you all understand that we're free of that now. The goal here is not realism, right? I am not painting, man, I've ranted and raved about this so many times, I don't need to do it again. We are not painting a picture. And I mispronounced the word in ink for you non-English speakers. The real word is picture, P-I-C-T-U-R-E. But I butcher the pronunciation just to be ornery, just to make the point. We're not painting a picture. We're painting a painting. And there's a world of difference. Okay, back 150 or more years ago, before the invention of the camera, artists were the camera, so they had to paint pictures much of the time. Even sometimes back then, even they didn't. They painted paintings. But anyway, ever since the invention of the camera in particular, we're not in the business of painting pictures. We're painting paintings. So when I say in the final edit layer, you cover up or edit out anything that is not visually effective, that is to say it's not working, which in this case, I've just mentioned a few minutes ago, sometimes includes, an overabundance of pencil marks. Too much pencil. But see, that's not a realism concern. That's not a grumpy adult criticism. Most of the time, the grumpy adult is looking for realism. Why? Because they're into control and they want things to be realistic. Okay, I beat that horse to death. I'll let it go. Yeah, do you see how that's working better now? This whole area is working better now that I've got that sky edge. Now, a little bit too sharp up here, a little bit too tight, a little bit too sharp. So there, that's better. I kind of like that one corner right there kind of popping out sharp and crisp. But I don't want a lot of that because it would be just too much. See, I'm trying to get you into my head. Don't stay there long. I want you to stay there just long enough to pick up some good stuff and then skedaddle, go back in your own head. Mine's crowded. No room for you in mine. Okay. A little bit more blue on my brushes here. No, more blue. And of course, again, you can't see my head. I'm glancing over at my photo reference not infrequently. Trying to give the impression, convey the essence of, in this case, right now, this building, without getting too tight. Darn, there's the challenge, right? Yesterday, while I was painting, I had a flash of insight that I don't think I've ever spelled out this way before, I don't think. Forgive me if I have. I've spoken often about Bob Ross and how was it that he was able to do what most people call a beautiful painting in 22 minutes or whatever the broadcast time was there. And my usual one word or hyphenated word, 2 words, my usual 2-word answer to that question is brush tricks. How did Bob Ross do what he did? The answer is brush tricks. And then I usually go on to say, now, you painter, you artist painter, you should know all of Bob Ross's brush tricks. You should. How do you make a little friendly little pine tree? How do you make grass? How do you make a waterfall? You know, all that stuff that he did. In other words, his techniques were not either unknown to the rest of the art world, nor were they super advanced. Excuse me, I need to figure out what's going on in this building here. Okay, they were not. They were adequate. And again, I liked Bob Ross's show as much as anybody's. I'm not criticizing him at all. But the way he accomplished what he did was because he knew the brush tricks. You've seen it. And just think about for a minute about how he picked up a palette knife and made a snow-covered mountain peak, right? And most people, myself included, especially as a younger man, would look at, he would take this palette knife, I can't demonstrate it right now, and he would do 1, 2, 3, 4 strokes, and we go, golly, look at that's a mountain, right? That was the response we all had, right? That was part of the fun of his show. Brush tricks. Okay, and then I usually say, okay, as a painter, it behooves you, if you want to be a good painter, you should know all his tricks. Because again, they were not obscure, he didn't invent them, he just used them to good effect. Okay, now, then yesterday as I was painting, I sort of took it one step further in my mind. And I said, you know what? That, in fact, is a good way to describe good painting. Let me talk about the very thing I'm painting right this minute, which is balconies with whitish railings. I don't know why they're whitish, but the balconies, yeah, it's white railings. So I'm painting white balconies on the front of this bluish glass, this building, steel building enclosed with bluish glass, right? How am I going to paint 60? I'll just use that number. How am I going to paint 60 balconies on the front of this building without sticking out my tongue and grabbing up a tiny, tiny, tiny brush? You know, you understand the sticking out the tongue part, right? Here's the canvas, here's the small brush, grip it this way, hike it right down, stick out your tongue, right? That's what I call tongue painting, right? You don't want to tongue paint. Why? Because it looks like it's tongue painted. Let me repeat something I said the other day for the first time ever. It was brilliant. Being humble again, David. You cannot make beautiful marks by making ugly movements. Ugly movements do not result in beautiful marks. And the essence of good painting is making beautiful marks. Okay? I usually say interesting, so as to avoid the sociological complications of the word beauty. Okay? But basically, that's what I mean, is beautiful marks. How do you make beautiful marks? By making beautiful movements. And that tongue painting that I just modeled for you a second ago does not result in beautiful marks. It's not a beautiful movement. Beautiful movements are ballet-ish. Really, the words that come out are free, spontaneous, joyful, confident, bold, expectant. Ooh, that's kind of looking kind of good, isn't it? So really, you could take all of this stuff and how do you paint a balcony? The answer is, doggone it, you better learn some brush tricks, or you're stuck. That's the first time I've ever put it that way. We all learn brush tricks. One of my favorite cityscape painters in the world right now is Jeremy Mann. Look him up, M-A-N-N. Young guy, in San Francisco. And look him up and answer this question. Does Jeremy Mann have a handle on brush tricks? The answer is, oh my goodness, does he ever? You can tell the way he moves it, like, oh, he's done that before. So that's kind of like Bob Ross, right? He's done that before. Now, what I usually often say when it comes to like the Bob Ross brush trick thing, you want to learn all those tricks. The caveat, the warning is that comes quickly after that statement is learn all of those tricks. Do not use them too much. Did I say that strongly enough? I believe I did. Learn not only all Bob Ross tricks, but learn everything. So I hope. Here's what I mean by that, and I just modeled it here. The last thing I did for these white balconies is I forget which palette. Oh, one of these palette knives I was using. I don't even know which one now. Doesn't matter. You can go back and watch it. I go back and watch it. Anyway, I did them with a palette knife. But look at how many I did. 60. I'm just making that number up. 10 by 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 50, whatever. But I didn't do it on every one. There's 2 there, and they're not all the same. Right? So I use brush tricks. I just try not to overuse them. So there you go. Whew, that was a long tirade, wasn't it? So just yesterday, new revelation. Oh, in a way, we all use brush tricks all the time. That's what good painting becomes. The warning, the caveat, the exception is don't overuse it. And that I have been saying that for years. I've been saying, you learn the Bob Ross tricks, just don't use them. And I don't mean don't use them at all. I mean don't overuse them. But at the moment, I'm kind of happy with the way that building is turning out. Let me see if any Crystal Toon gives me 4 thumbs up. Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate that. So nearly finished. I guess I'll finish this building. Or at least take it to the next level. And in case you're wondering, yeah, absolutely, I have the professor in my head, my own voice is saying, "Be careful, be careful, be careful! Don't do too much. You're skating really close to the edge." Which I am. So help me if I finish this painting and discover after it's all done that, doggone it, I did too much. That's how I will feel. Okay. But I do think I need to put a spire on the top of this building. Yeah. Whew. In a way, I want you to hear my struggle. Everything in painting, you could, over every rule I ever say, you could follow up with, yeah, easier said than done. Correct. Doggone it. Easier said than done. Easy to screw up. So easy. All right. No, not quite finished. Not quite finished. I thought I might be done with this building, but no. The top of this building is so distinctive in our skyline, as you can well see. So it deserves quite a bit of visual attention. I just don't want to overdo it. All right, I'm going to pause there for now. That is to say, pause on that building. And where to go next. By the way, there are two principles. Both are valid principles in tension with each other. One principle that I'm violating right now, one principle is don't just focus on one area of your painting and crawl around like that. You should work on the whole canvas at the whole time. And right now I'm not doing that. First of all, my first 13 layers, I very much did that. Paint the whole thing very quickly. And it's still a valid principle. But in my opinion, that principle, which is a good one, at the moment is trumped by a different principle, which is start at the focal point and work outward from there. Because if you start out here, you're way too likely to overdo it. Too much energy, too much specificity, too many hard edges, right? I don't know how, these may be completely finished. I won't know until I get out there. So again, so I'm violating, some of you may be aware of that principle. You should be working all over. Yeah, but in this case, I'm moving out from the focal point because I'm going to go less and less and less energy as I go on. And if I go way out here, it's hard to know how much is less. Does that make sense? I think I'm going to tackle this building next. I'm looking and thinking. Looks like I'm done with those orange yellow brushes for a while. So let me take a minute and clean those up. This is a challenging building. I'm not sure why. I'll describe it to you. The skin of the building is rather like, it's concrete, almost like an adobe type, and it's very simple, buff, tan, light brown color on the skin of the building. But there are a lot of windows, lots and lots and lots of windows. That's a challenge by itself. And the windows are all distinctly tinted green. So, well, here's an interesting. This building is tinted purple, blue, and green. I don't know if I'm assuming that when the architects are doing a good job, they pay attention to their neighbors. When they're doing a bad job, they say, oh, to heck with their neighbors, we're going to build whatever we want. And that's my opinion, and I think most great architects would agree with me. You have to take context into account. There's a new building being built right between these two right now. Boom, it's not there. But it's not real tall. Not as tall as this, but it's definitely going to come up and block some of that. It's being built right now, and I believe it's a bluish green glass like those buildings over there. So again, I'm assuming good architects pay attention to their neighbors. Anyway, this building is hard because it has, when you stand back and look at it, the building looks green, but when you analyze it, the reason it looks green is because of the windows, not because of the actual skin on the building. That's one of the challenges. I'll leave it at that. Let's just stop talking. Let's try to paint. I've already painted these windows greenish, so maybe I can just go right ahead and start painting in between the windows. Now, talk about a temptation to overdo it. This part of the building way down here is almost exactly in the center, the bullseye of my focal point, right? So that means it can bear up under a high degree of realism, specificity, realism, sharp edges. Speaking of sharp edge, there's one, eh? But even saying that, it's still the default position for most of us artists is too much tightness. A lot looser up here. By the way, a lot of these strokes that I'm putting down are actually not technically opaque. They're not really opaque, even though I call this last layer light opaque highlights. Like that entire stroke that I just put down. None of it was opaque. It was all see-through. There's a lot of confusion among English speakers between the words transparent and translucent, which I do not understand. I think if you put it down on a quiz, people could get the answer right. What is the difference between opaque, transparent, and translucent? I think they would get it right on a quiz. But when they're talking, all of a sudden they find themselves mid-sentence, and they want to say the word transparent, but they feel like it doesn't sound quite smart enough, is the impression I get. So instead they replace it with a bigger word, the fancier, the more intelligent sounding word, translucent. And I'm not blaming them. We all do this as we're talking extemporaneously. But no, transparent is clear like glass, translucent is fuzzy, like a frosted light bulb. And knowing the difference between those two, you have to know the difference between those two in order to understand what I'm saying with my painting, because I make a clear distinction between transparent and translucent. Good, okay, so way up here. Yeah, that looks all right so far. But yes, I'm in danger of overdoing it, you bet. Just like you, I'm in danger of doing too much of a good thing. I sometimes give numbers or percentages. Most artists are like me, and they fit this description. I am tighter than I'd like to be. I would like to paint looser, right? That's most artists, and I usually say 90% or 99%. I'll tell you the truth. I've mentioned this a couple times in my broadcasts over the years. To tell you the truth, I've known 2 artists. It doesn't mean there aren't more around, but personally, I only know of 2. John Lowe, L-O-W-E, you can Google him. This is 12 years ago. He's still an artist, I'm happy to say. Consider him a happy friend acquaintance. John Lowe and Gosia, G-O-S-I-A, I think it's lovely young lady from Poland, lives in America, but Polish extraction, or no, I mean, she's from Poland. Anyway, John and Gosia, only 2 artists I've known who literally came out of the chute loose. And their challenge has been they've had to learn how to draw. Because, well, of course, we all have to learn how to draw, but do you know what I mean? Most of us are drawers, and then we wish we could paint looser. Just for what it's worth, I've known 2. Just to give you some idea. What are the ratios? I've known thousands of artists. Well, thousands. I don't know. They may be somewhere between 1 and 2,000. I shouldn't say I've known thousands. But of the hundreds, anyway, I've known, they all fit that description, except 2, John and Gosia. Some of you locals here in Raleigh, if you ever watch this, you might know of whom I speak. I'm sorry I forget Gosia's last name. Gosia, if you ever hear about this, I'm saying good things about you, my dear. And we were in a gallery together for a number of years. It was okay, do you see every once in a while my hands take this little, I give my hands permission to have a little seizure without my permission. I give my hands permission, especially if I've been overly, my favorite word, if I've been overly fastidious for too many minutes like that. See, I give my hands permission to do something like that. Without my permission, now, here's the hard part. This is so intuitive, very hard to describe. When I say without my permission, what I mean is, you need to see my face again. My brain cannot go, I believe it's time for one of those spastic movements. Let's do it right now. Witness the tongue. Do you see what I mean? It cannot come. It absolutely cannot come from that center of my brain. It cannot, it doesn't work if it does. It doesn't work. It comes off phony baloney. It does not work if it's coming from a carefully forethought. It has to grow out of a kind of spontaneity, real spontaneity, not a pretended spontaneity, or it won't look right. Why? So back to something I've already said a little while ago. You cannot make beautiful marks with grumpy movements. I mean, you can't make beautiful marks with ugly movements. So the little spontaneous things that I do with my hands, they have to be to some degree spontaneous. Well, how can you do something if it's spontaneous, right? So there's the rub. I don't know where I'm getting so far down in the mysteries of the human psyche that I don't even know how to dig my way out of that conundrum. It has to be unplanned. So my best description of it is I give my hands permission to have a seizure without my permission. Whew. That's about the best I can do. If I start thinking about it, there, I just did it. I wasn't thinking about it. If I start thinking about it, I'll mess up and I'll start overdoing it. It's almost right, that side of the building now. It's not looking quite flat enough, so let's do. Again, how must I paint the side of this building? And one answer to that was what I was saying a while ago, has to be brush tricks. I'm not completely happy with how that's looking. It's not bad. Excuse me, a sneeze coming on. Phew! Excuse me, sorry about that. I'll let you in on my private life. Okay, another description, another way to describe anytime you're painting a highly variegated object, that is an object with a lot of busyness in it. The answer is you don't do it all at once. You've got to do it in stages. So that's what you see me doing here, wrestling to make the side of this building look like the side of that building without getting bogged down in overpainting, right? That's a good way to put it, overpainting. That's pretty good. I think what I'm gonna do right now is gonna, again, cheat the system a little bit, because theoretically, all of my dark details are supposed to be finished. But theory schmeary, I am allowed to cheat the system. So I'm mixing up some dark details, dark paint. And of course, dark means transparent, right? You don't have to tell you that. You already know that. And I want to come in here and just render a few. Ooh, that worked well. Now, generally speaking, the rule is anytime you put dark paint on your canvas, you're not done, you're not finished with that part of your canvas, because dark is just the wind-up for light. And that is not a Dan Nelsonism. That is a art. That is an art professorism. That is darks first, lights last. So anytime you put some dark paint on your canvas, you just thought you were done. That's the rule, of course. Now, every rule can be broken. But you better know the rule, otherwise you're probably just screwing up. So here I am doing dark. That means, in theory, I want to follow up this step right here, what I'm doing right here, these brush tricks now. And by the way, what you are seeing here, one of the advantages of painting with two hands is you can paint more quickly. I'm exactly twice as fast as if I was using one hand. So there's a brush trick right there that I've learned before. That my left hand is actually hitting the same window that my right hand just did. I guess that takes practice. Although I've never been aware of practicing it, I've just become aware that I have the ability to do it. And I do know that abilities like that only come from practicing. I don't know if you caught that or not, but I'm not going to model it for you, because just to make the point. But sometimes I do parallel marks. That takes practice. Sometimes, there we go, I'm doing it again. My right hand, I can go in either order. My right hand hits the window first, and then my left hand comes, or vice versa here. Right hand comes back and hits it twice. That's pretty close. I like that. I'm liking basically. Now let's go back. As I said, this is not a time for me to violate that rule. The rule, darks first, lights last. So now I'm back to pale brown again, to come and paint in between some of the windows I just painted a little bit. Again, another way to describe this, that the whole side of this building is one gigantic repeated motif over and over and over and over, right? And how do you paint a highly repetitive motif? The answer is in a not repetitive manner. You have to come up with different ways. So that's what you see me doing. You know, first I do one thing, then I come back and do something else, and come back and do something else, and come back and do something else. So that the windows, quote unquote, the windows of this building all look like windows, but they look like windows that have been painted in a variety of manner. Because if they look like they're all painted the same way, they're going to be dreadfully boring. And interesting marks, the essence of interestingness, right? The essence of good painting is making interesting marks, and the essence of interesting marks is variety. There you go. You'll hear that again if you hang around long enough. Yeah, I'm very close, and fairly happy with the way this building is turning out. Here, let me take just a second and show you the photograph. Am I in? Hang on, there we go. Do you see, there's the photograph of the building? Do you catch the essence of it there? That's what I'm trying to capture, except that I'm trying to make a more differentiation between the light side and the dark side in my painting, which is not reflected in the photograph. Still got light stuff on my brushes, so decided a little bit more up here. Now, this is easy. Anytime you find that you've been overly fussy for any number of minutes, you've been too fussy for too long. I don't usually scratch quite that much, but the effect is minimal, so I'm free to do more. Yeah. Now, again, that might be a little bit too much detail on that building. It is possible, so I reserve the right to come back and mess it up even a little bit more if I find that I need to. But I'm going to leave it for the moment. I say that and then I continue painting, right? Just like all of you do. Well, let me finish. Besides being green tinted glass all the way up and down this building, the very top of the building up here, actually, the metal casing that goes around all the antennas and paraphernalia at the top of the building, they have it encased, so to speak, with a metal barrier. It is painted. It's definitely painted green. So that is a very distinctive part of this. Anybody in Raleigh would know, oh, that building's green at the top. So I want to capture that. All right, I think I'm done. I just realized, like, wait a minute, with this pale green, let me hit some of these windows over here for variety. Give me a little more variety in some of these windows. All right. Now, I really am going to sit back for a moment and look at that building in particular. Yeah, it is overdone. Again, don't witness, as I like to say, witness my distress. I'm not distressed yet. I'm not too worried, but it is overdone. Over here, this side is okay, just a little bit. Here's a trick that you can use often. Anytime you find you've been overly fastidious, overly fussy. This happens a lot when I'm doing figures on a street, because the figures have to be anatomically correct. They can't have balloon heads, or they can't look like, you know, deformed people, so the anatomy has to be correct. So you have to do a little bit of overly fussy painting, right? But then they go, wah, 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 I'm overly fussy, right? So here's a trick. I'm going to do it on this building. That is, go ahead, paint it realistic. Go ahead, get it right, but then come back and mess it up. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm getting my fingers inside a piece of rag here. 3 fingers, because I think it'll be better than 1. And I'm just going to mess this up. That's better. Whew, that's scary. You cannot do that slowly. Why? Well, thanks to insight yesterday, I've got new language for it that I've never used before, either yesterday or the day before. Why can't you do that slowly? Because it's impossible to make beautiful marks with ugly movements. What is an ugly movement? An ugly movement would have been, I stick my fingers in this rag and I go, I don't know, I'm worried, I'm insecure, so I'll do it slowly. Woohoo! Gives me the creeps just to think about it. So ugly movements come mostly from insecurity more than anything else. Ugly movements are a burst of insecurity. So does that mean you have to be bold and confident? No, it just means you have to fake it. You with me? So you don't have to wait and say, well, I am insecure. Well, I could care less how you feel inside. You need to make your body move as if you're not insecure. And anybody can do that. So I'm not asking you to change your personality. I am asking you to take control over your body, and when necessary, make your body behave in a manner that is not consistent with your screwed up insides. Eventually, your insides will catch up to your body. I think this is behaviorism, psychology. Do the right thing, and then your body, your emotions will catch up. Anyway, so there you go. There's a good description. You can't make beautiful marks with ugly movement. So that's why I did that fast. Having said that, does that mean that I'm absolutely married to whatever marks I just happen to make with my rag? The answer is of course not. Now I'm mixing up a little bit of dark again. Not nearly as many as I did before, but coming up here and doing just a few where I feel like it would be a good idea to have some dark details. And of course, anytime you do dark, that means You usually follow up with light, and I'm sort of questioning at this moment whether it's really necessary in this case, but no, I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm following the rule. Every rule can be broken. Doesn't mean there's not a rule. Just means everyone can be broken. But if you don't know what the rule is, I know you've heard me say it and you're probably tired of it, but it's so true. If you don't know what the rule is, you're probably just screwing up. So learn what the rules are. And I have about given up on writing a book called The Breakable Laws of Painting. Don't despair, though, some of you regulars. It's because I'm going to do the whole thing as a video series. The Breakable Laws of Painting, and that'll probably be for sale when I get that done. All right, I like that. I'm pretty happy. This broadcast has gone on half an eternity, and I think I'm ready to, first of all, take a little break. I've had my nose right up in it for whatever it's been, an hour and something, right? Hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, something like that. That's long enough. I'm fairly happy with it. Remains to be seen how I feel when I come back after a little break. Oh, I see something right now that I want to fix. So I'll do this. This will be my last thing. Coming back over to this building. Cheating the system. Again, looking at my photograph. Oh yeah, there's some dark marks there. I should have those dark marks reflected in my painting. Make sense? Scribble them a little bit. All right, that was a very minor thing. And the rule would be I should come back with light. But in this case, I look at it and go, nah, it's not really necessary, I don't think. So I'm going to let it go. Whew. Okay, let me look at your chats, you guys, you dear friends, before I take off. See if I've missed anything. And I will continue the same broadcast later. Well, should I? I guess so. I'll leave it open, so I won't close it up. Okay, let's go all the way back to Mark Toomey. Hey, friend. Good to hear from you. I'm giving a Brisbane city landscape painting a go, too. Good for you, man. Good for you. Brisbane. I probably said that wrong, didn't I? Did I say Brisbane? Surely not. Surely not. Hey, Michael McEwen. He's asked a question. Did your pen and ink work make you tight with painting at the start? Yes, that's a very fair comparison. Very fair. Yes, yes. I was an illustrator. Pen and ink, watercolor, airbrush, super tight, sometimes airbrush. Yes, you're exactly correct. So when I first started oil painting, in fact, when I first started 20 years ago, sure, I just carried over all that tightness into painting. I had fun. I had a ball. Did realistic, and if you can understand what I mean, realistic fantasy paintings. You can see those on my website. But, you know, tight, even though I was painting imaginary things. So, yes, very good observation. That is exactly right. And Michelle Lynn, fine art. Hey, yeah, MS. Yes, bless you, Michelle. May you be well. Thank you for having the right attitude. I have so many people over the years who have told me, well, I used to paint, but now my hands shake so much. And, you know, I have to be real gentle because the day may come when my hands shake a lot. But most of the time, Michelle, what I want to say is, no, don't quit. Rembrandt did his most amazing paintings with shaky hands. Now, do we know that? No, just look at his paintings. You can tell. In fact, Charles Schultz, Peanuts, finished the last 10 years of his career, however many years, with shaky hands. You can tell, but they're still better than his old stuff, than his younger stuff. So way to go, Michelle. You're doing the right thing. Just keep painting. And all the rest of you who don't have a real excuse for having shaky hands, all those shaking that your hand is doing, that's just your hand trying to make you paint better. All right, I could go on and on and on for that. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. Yes, just keep painting. You can still do great painting. Timothy Barnes. Oh, yeah, Timothy, good point. You should simplify the rule too. You can't make beautiful marks with insecure movements. Now, I like the tension of beautiful marks with ugly movements, but I agree. Your paraphrase is a very useful one, and I'll use that. Thank you. You can't make beautiful marks with insecure movements. That's more quick to the point. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And yeah, rule insight. That's exactly right. Thank you, guys. So as I said, I don't think I'll close this broadcast out, but I do need to paint. Need to take a break. Need to paint by myself for a while. But those of you who are watching this later, you know, there'll be no seam, I understand. But those of you who are watching right now, sayonara. See ya. For I need to paint by myself for a while. But I'll come back and continue the broadcast, I hope, later. What time is it today anyway? 4:20, okay. Good to have you. I'll be back in a bit. Bye-bye. All right. Hello. Welcome back. Really? If you're watching this after the broadcast, then you say, welcome back from where? Okay. Those of us in real time, though, they just took it's been a several hour break. Whew, during which time I've been busy. Besides painting, mostly painting, I went ahead and got my, just for what it's worth, my trumpet practice and my saxophone practice out of the way for the day, so I don't have to torment my wife this evening, as I usually do. She doesn't have to listen to me make this god-awful noises. Okay, so I have been busy. You can see, and I'm sorry, the glare is terrible. Let me try raising you guys up even just a little bit more. It just raises the glare up a little bit, but anyway, there it is. Let me zoom in for you and give you a quick tour. So I started, as you know, here in the middle with my final layer, and just basically worked in concentric circles outward from there. And I haven't finished the bottom part. That's what I'm going to work on right now. I'm fairly happy with the painting. I do fear that I've overpainted a little bit too much. I'll tell you what is happening though, and I've made this observation before. Because of my painting style and the layers and layers and layers and layers, I have quite the illusion. It's such a good illusion that it even fools me. I have the illusion of detail out here and out here. Let me zoom into, I guess I'll zoom into that and let you look at it for just a second. From a distance, or when, at first glance, this looks tight, but then when you come in and look at it carefully, it's like, oh, no, well, you know, there's a tiny bit of tight there and there and there. I guess you call that tight, etc. there, but there's very, very little. Same thing over here at the other end. At first glance, if at the corner of your eye, it looks tight, but then when you come over and actually look at it, you go, oh no, it's a mess. So, you know, I'm not sure if I've overpainted. Again, because when you actually look at it, no, it's not overpainted. But at first glance, it looks like there's too much tightness and detail. So, and that does concern me a little bit. So I'm still on this journey for the perfect painting and perfect painting technique. I'm getting better. I mean, the list that I showed you at the beginning of this painting today is my latest statement. That's this right here that I showed you. That's you can see this right there on my YouTube channel. Just click on my channel, and then at the top it has something, videos, a whole bunch of things, and in there is one of the tabs is called Community. This is on everybody's YouTube channel, and if you go to that community, you can see a whole number of images that I have uploaded to my YouTube channel over the years. And this afternoon I just uploaded that, so you can print that off if you're interested even, and see. So that's my latest, my latest greatest. That's my best description of my painting process to date. I spent an awful lot of, no, that's putting it too strongly. I spent quite a bit of time in this last painting session. As I moved out, I spent quite a bit of time out here and out here after painting, coming back and messing up. I think I've probably used more tools for messing up than I ever have before. I've used a rag with my fingers in it, a rag dipped in turpenoid or Gamsol with my fingers in it. I've scraped quite vigorously with this metal thing. This is actually a sculpture tool, clay tool. I've scraped, I've done all kinds of things to make those areas loose. Anyway, that's all part of my new part of my repertoire, I guess I would say. All right, now I don't want an awful. The last thing I'm going to do on this painting, and I won't necessarily broadcast it, or not all of it anyway. The last thing I'm going to do is the trees, the foliage, but I'm still a little ways from that point because I want to. Hang on. I want to finish all the architectural structure before I do the trees, right? I just mixed up a green, pale green to represent the grass along the highway down here on both sides of this road. All right, I think that's enough of that. How's my sound doing? I think it's all right, right? Turn up my monitor a little bit. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're okay. Now let's do some highway, and I'm going to do a little bit on these cars down here, of course, just a little bit, and I hope not too much. Here's another way to describe a painting technique that I think is helpful. So at the moment, I'm going to paint this overpass. It comes up, through the trees all the way over to here, and the post, the pillar holding it up, and then the highway down here, right? So it's going to be a very bright, not as bright as it is in the photograph, but it's going to be bright. Sunshine hitting this part of the landscape. And here's a good trick. Like in my mind, I think I want this light stuff, that concrete railing, highway, and so forth. I picture it, I envision it at a certain brightness, certain lightness of value. Therefore, here's the point I want to make. I do not put that color on the canvas. I'm going to make up some strange. I what's the word? Underpaint it. That doesn't convey, because we use the term underpainting. I'm trying to think of what would be a terminology. Basically, what I mean is I paint it darker than I want it to be ultimately. Why? Because I know, and if you follow me regularly, you know as well as I, that I'm going to follow through. I'm going to follow up this first layer of lightness, if I can call it that. I'm going to follow up this first layer of lightness with another layer that's slightly lighter, and perhaps even a third layer that's slightly lighter than that. So I am now, knowing that I'm going to do that, I start out then intentionally darker so that I have room to go, room to lighten. So I start out as intentionally dark. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm growing in that habit and in that, forethought. Think ahead. Instead of just painting the color I want, I go, wait a minute, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I'm not going to paint it the color I want. I'm going to paint it darker than I actually want, because that will give me more room to grow, so to speak. It'll give me headroom. There's a good word for it. It'll make values, lightness, headroom. Of course, even if I weren't doing that, I would be making a fairly serious mistake right now by I've had the same color of my brushes doing this whole thing. First the overpass, and then starting the road, and I'm going to do the pillar, whatever you call this thing, the post holding the highway up. It would be a serious mistake to be using the same color over this broad an area. Does that make sense? But it's okay, because you and I both know I'm going to come back in just a few minutes and overpaint it with a lighter color, and I'll do that more than once, possibly, and then it'll be all right. Let me state that principle again, in different words. We, the viewers of paintings, the viewers of finished paintings, we do not like to see the same color slathered over a broad area of the painting. Why not? As far as I can tell, I think it's mostly because it's lack of variety. And we, the viewers, we're big on variety. We like to see, we don't like to see sameness. Sameness of texture, sameness of brush, sameness of brush stroke, sameness of color, sameness of value. We don't like that. So I'm horribly violating that principle right now. And if I didn't finish this, that would be a blight. It would be a stroke against me in this painting if I left it that way. But don't worry. And again, you regulars, you know, you're not worried. You know exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going to start it right now. So can you see my palette? Yeah, you can. Okay, so there's the color I've been using. I'm going to just pick up some more titanium white, mix it in with that. So now I have a slightly lighter version of the same color. Does that make sense? Then I come up to the area I just painted, and I overpaint some of it. Now the question should be, well, where do you put this lighter color? The funny part is, to me, it almost doesn't matter at all. You can put it anywhere. I'm not even terribly much thinking about, the light's coming from the left. And I've already got that you know, by the shadow of these trees and the shadows of the cars and so on and so forth. That's already nailed down. It almost doesn't matter where you put this slightly lighter color. You can put it anywhere. And I do think that that's actually an accurate reflection of the way sunlight in particular, the way sunlight behaves in a landscape. And in a word, sunlight does not behave in a landscape. Sunlight is such a powerful light source that it just ricochets and bounces and glances all over the place. And way more, in a way more complex pattern than we are normally given to see. You know, so by painting in this manner, I think I'm actually sort of like the Impressionists. I'm more accurately reflecting the realities of sunlight than if I were tight and controlled. Okay, can you see what's happening here? Little finger painting there, yep. Now, you might say, well, just a minute ago you said we don't like seeing the same color slathered, is the word you used. We don't like seeing the same color. Well, now haven't you just slathered the same two colors over? And the answer is yes, but for some reason it works. I could stop right there. How do I know this? My eye tells me, that's all. I just look at it and go, no, that looks fine. No, in fact, I am in fact going to come back, as I'm doing right now, with a third, even lighter, almost pure titanium white, not quite. Slightly dirty titanium. And again, hitting just a few bits here and there. And I'm gonna say that that's pretty much done. I'm going to do cars in a minute, but before I do that, while I've got this very light color on my brush, I'm going to put in light posts. For some reason, one of the characteristics of this particular scene of our downtown Raleigh is peppered with these light poles, and I know that not just from looking at a photograph. The photograph I'm looking at today, I know it from previous experience. I've painted this scene many times. I don't know, I'm looking. Any other? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just a nice little touch of realism. It feels like, except for this one right here. I'm going to erase the bottom of that one. There we go. That's better. That one was growing right out of the middle of the street, which doesn't make sense. Now, some of the closer ones, I'm going to go ahead and put the street light on them. Now, are those a little bit sharp? Are they getting too much attention? They might be. There. So simply by doing that with a dry brush, they've been pushed back just a little bit, just enough, I think, and they're not getting too much attention. Okay, let's do some cars. More specifically, let's do some taillights over here. These cars going this way. So a smudge of red. Let's do this one too. You've seen, if you've watched me, you've seen me do this trick many times before. I am certainly not the only person who does this trick. This is the sort of the standard way in our generation of painting car lights, any kind of bright lights. Okay, now I've mixed up a pale orange, and I'm gonna, in the middle of that red glow, I'm gonna put a slightly fuzzy pale orange. And then inside the orange, just a little pinprick of white. Now, car coming toward us from the other direction should have headlights on. So I'm going to put a fuzzy bit of yellow orange here, and then sometimes even dragging, yeah, that's good enough. And then inside that, a more intense than the taillights, a bigger dab of white. Okay, so now we have a car coming toward us and these cars going away from us. That's all there is to it. I was debating whether to do any details on these cars at all, but I've decided I'll do a little bit, because right at the moment they're just gray smudges, which is okay. They could stay gray smudges. I'm trying to mix up a cool gray to do, oh, that's too dark, to do the reflection of windshield. That might be good enough. I'm going to do, but I use the same color on all 4 cars, so that means I should probably mix up a lighter version of that and come back and touch. Here's another, for what it's worth. Now, this is certainly not a parking lot. I've only got indicating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars in this scene. Hang on. I didn't like the way that red smudge on that one was looking. If you have a bunch of cars to paint, like if you're ever, I don't know why anyone else, whatever, but I've done this a lot with, I have to paint a parking lot full of cars. In this case, just a few cars. I'll tell you what color to paint them. Basically, this is one approach. Basically, they should all be gray. All your cars should be gray. 1 out of 10 of your cars should be red. Red-ish. And that's all. You're done. No blue cars, no, well, you could be bluish gray. No yellow cars, orange cars, green cars. No. And white cars, no, light gray. Anyway, just for what it's worth, check it out. Check it out. Good. No. Wait. If you're doing New York City, then half of them are yellow because they're taxis. See, that's a distinctive. That's specific. But otherwise, you should do this. All these cars are gray, and they're going to stay gray. Trust me, I've made every mistake in the book at least twice, And one of those mistakes was making my cars different colors. Mistake. All right, there's a little kind of cupola, steeple kind of thing. And since I've done it in the underpainting, I feel kind of obligated that I need to follow through. I can't leave it quite the way it is. So, oh, and it's got a red roof. I didn't even notice that. That's pretty bad. I'm supposed to have noticed things like that before I get anywhere close to this step. Now, I don't have to do a red roof, of course. But I like the idea. I really like the idea of a red roof. So let me see if I can sneak some red in here without regretting it. Here, I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. So I just did a smear of red, allowing it to go well up into the, green behind it. I don't like that very much. Hang on. That's better. Isn't that funny? Okay, and then some of the white again. And then a lighter white, right? Always the rule. And there's a bit of a building detail coming down there. And then just a little bit more there. I better do it. And then I'm finally down to doing the foliage, the trees, which are going to be extremely understated. All right, I think that's all right. The brushes I've got right now are way too small, but I'm going to use them for a minute just because they're already dirty. So I'm going to mix up a dark neutral green. You would think that would be really easy to do. It seems like I often find myself messing around quite a bit. There we go. So a medium dark, dull green, and it's opaque. It's not transparent, because this is supposed to be lighter than anything I put it on. Yeah, that's good. That's working well. And partly I'm looking for anything that doesn't look quite tree-ish enough yet. Anything that... Now, this color, I don't want to put it on anything that's lighter, that's a lighter shade. I'm only putting this on stuff that's darker, and the color I've just mixed up. You know what I mean? Can you see it down there? It's this pile right here. So it's fairly dark, a number 7 perhaps on a grayscale. That means I don't put it on anything lighter than an 8, because if I do, it'll look like mud. And the brushes I'm using are a little bit irritatingly too small, so I'll switch to some bigger ones here in a minute. There's quite a few pencil lines in here, and too many pencil lines, so I'm just scumbling right now over some of those pencil lines and some of the, what are they called? Water-soluble pastels. It sounds like some kind of, I don't know what, mashup joke. Water-soluble pastels. I like them though. I'm going to use them. I may complement them with a set of oil pastels to use in the oil stages. In the parallel, I'm using the water-soluble pastels. Found they worked quite well in the acrylic stage. Not quite so well in the oil stage. So I could get oil sticks, of course. I've used those before. Now, one of the things I am going to do with these trees, and I'm not going to spend, I hope, hours and hours doing it, because they should be able to knock this off pretty quickly, is what I call the Thomas Kincaid tree trick. And again, I love saying good things about him because, as artists, we're all supposed to hate him, blah, 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 and I don't. You shouldn't either, frankly. We hate him because he made $1 bazillion and I didn't yet. But one of the little tricks that he had that worked very well for him is anytime he painted a bank of trees like this, he was careful to make the trees, from one tree to another, to make them different colors. Good trick. Good trick, Thomas. And one that I picked up on just by looking at his paintings. So that means a reddish tree, a bluish tree, a orangish tree, a purplish tree, a greenish tree, a yellowish tree, just all various shades of green, but, green with a little more red in it, green with a little more blue in it, and so on and so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and do one right now. I'm going to do brownish green, okay? Green, but with a little bit more brown in it. That's very safe color. And it's a little bit too dark, so hang on. And by the way, how do I know this? I've got a loose ferrule here. How do I know where to put these lighter colors? The real answer is that the canvas, the painting is already telling me where to put this slightly brownish green, because I'm putting it in areas where there is already a slightly brown tint. That make sense? So that keeps me from having to, so in other words, I'm responding to what's there. It's a more authentic, it's certainly an easier way to paint than just inventing out of whole cloth, as the expression goes. I need a bank, I just realized right up here, I need a bank of brighter green foliage, as if the sun is shining on it, and I don't want this to be this lighter green to be uniformly spread across the forest, the bank of trees. That would be irritating. No, I want it rather concentrated or focused. And all of a sudden, just a minute ago, I said, "Oh wait, there's a place for there's where these sun-kissed treetops should go, right in here. See that? Close to the focal point up here. Then less interest, less contrast in the trees, the further back we get from the focal point." Yeah. Now that I've used that one color green across a fairly wide area, right? You understand now. That's a violation. So whoa, we're not done. So I'm just going to add some more titanium white and actually some Naples yellow. to that color, and let's come in and do this lighter color now on top of some of what I just put down. Then every little thing gonna be all right. I have one more layer, one more stage to go in this painting, in all my paintings, right? I'm right here, I'm number 14, final edit. And by the way, I'm going to add intentional intermittent messiness under that too. When I put this together, I wasn't sure that that was supposed to be in there, but in fact it is. So I've got one more layer to go, and that is broken color, where I match the value that's already here on the painting, but I introduce contrasting colors. That is now my official last layer. Hey, I'll talk for just a few more minutes. While I'm doing these trees, you see the way I'm holding the brushes. This brush is really bothering me. By the way, that's why you don't keep a brush in water, because in the ferrule, the wood swells and stretches the ferrule. The ferrule, right? You understand the word that I'm saying there? And we do not like wiggly brushes. That was really irritating me, so I just... Now you could take a pair of pliers and just crimp the heck out of the ferrule and sometimes get it to work for a while. That's an old brush that I didn't even buy. I inherited that from somebody. Oh yeah, sure, Dan, right. No, I did, honestly. I didn't ruin that brush. No, I've ruined plenty of brushes. Don't worry about that. Okay, but the way that I'm applying this paint to indicate trees, right? You notice, you can kind of see, this is very much the way I do clouds as well. This is a great example of what I'm talking about when I try to describe my painting style. I call it abstract realism, which means that in this sense, the brush strokes themselves are more important, are paramount over similitude, over realism, okay? So I want the marks that I'm making right now, of course I want them to look like trees, but simply by their position and so forth in the scene, most people are going to interpret them as trees without a whole lot of trouble. But more important than looking like trees, I actually want them to look like brush strokes. I know you can't, let me pick you up for a minute and show you, sorry for the earthquake ride, hang on. Okay, so do you see, I'm sorry, hang on. Okay, do you see the brush strokes in those clouds? They are supposed to look like clouds, and they do, pretty much. But they look even more like brush strokes. Am I making sense to you? And I'm doing a similar kind of thing down here in the trees. Of course I want them to, and you could say to me, some people would say, the grumpy adult would say, can't you paint those to look more like trees? Of course I can paint them to look more like trees. I can do photorealistic trees. It would be so ridiculous, of course, in this painting to do photorealistic trees. But that's not the point. The point is, I want the brush strokes themselves to be paramount over similitude. I want the viewer's mind to go in this order. Ooh, brush strokes. Ooh, trees. Now, they might do it the other way around. Ooh, trees. Ooh, brush strokes. But if they're up close... Okay, so let's do that again. From a distance, they'll go, ooh, trees. And then when they get up close, they'll go, ooh, brush strokes. There we go. That's a good way to put it. I can't ask for any more than that. That's like the ideal response I would get from my viewers is, ooh, trees. And then when they get closer, Ooh, brush strokes. So if they ignored my painting till they were right up close, right up on it, then I would want their response to be the opposite. I would want them to go, ooh, brush strokes. Ooh, wow, trees. Do you hear the way I'm trying to act that out there just to make sense of it? All right, I am, oh good, I've already got a dirty brush down here. I'm getting a little bit too much energy down here in all of this tree. So I've got a brush here. It's fairly clean. I'm gonna put some liquid on it. And I'm just gonna come up here and mess up some of the very trees that I just painted. It's getting too busy, getting too much energy. I'm just smearing it now. That doesn't mean I can't come back and do more. I can, but I'm not sure that I will need to. I'm going to go ahead and paint with this big brush now for a few minutes. I do want the corners of this painting, the way they are right now, to be just a little bit greener than they are. And ever so slightly lighter, not much, just a tiny bit. I don't want it to look like the artist just walked away before the painting was finished. And there's a real fine line between, you know, a vignetted corner like this and an unfinished painting. Really delicate balance. So I'm painting with a 3-inch brush. Okay, so I'm not going to finish this painting today. I, at one point, but I'm pretty close. I had vain hopes of finishing the whole thing. Not quite, but pretty close. I'm not disappointed. I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Tomorrow, or Monday, as the case may be. I don't know if I'll paint tomorrow or not. I'll maybe I hope to broadcast for you. I'm going to do broken color. And very, very possibly, very likely, I think, on this painting, before I do the broken color, when I come back probably on Monday, I will probably do glazes over the entire painting. When I do that, I can actually push these wings, the edges of this cityscape, back just a little bit, which I think will help, and warm this up just a little bit, tiny bit. But it can make a difference. And then I can do whatever I want. I'll do, but it'll be mostly broken color. And if you haven't seen me do broken color before, you'll just have to come back. The edge of this sky, I want to do tiny bits here and there of edge, just little tiny bits, and up here. And I'll be done. I'm happy with this painting. I do like this painting, and I'm happy to say that. You know, I'm sure all you people who are painters, I think you understand. When an artist says that, he or she is not bragging. I mean, maybe if they're sick. They got real issues. I try to draw the line at real issues. All my issues are just fake. No, but an artist is not bragging. It's almost a matter of surprise, like, oh, wow, that kind of turned out pretty good. I will post on YouTube, on the community part of my website, I will post the finished painting so you can get a good look at it. And even then, trust me, the original painting, someone said, Jane Grayson said last week, it looks 100 times, the real thing looks 100 times better. That's a high number, maybe 10 times better. But the only way you'll know is if you buy one. Get them quick, prices are going up. All right, if you enjoyed this, please click like and leave a comment. Wait, there's a few chats here, let me see. William Angelo, legal demise. Cool. Thinker888, I don't know if you're still watching, if you watch this, am I still using liquid? The answer is only a tiny bit, only enough to make the paint flow, not not to make a glaze? Very good question. Yeah, a little bit. I think too, when I come back tomorrow or Monday, I think the trees down here need a little more values breaks, need a little bit more definition. Right now it's just going too soft, no definition. It looks like I didn't finish. Real delicate balance there, but then I'll do that later. I'm out of gas for today. It's been a good long productive day. And but this might be my favorite skyline, Raleigh skyline yet. I say that just because I'm still maturing. I'm still getting better, and I understand things better now than I did, 2 months ago, last time I did a skyline. All right, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, click like, subscribe. If you don't like it, let's just keep that between you and me. Old joke. Hope to talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.